Hey, it is A Humble Collector here, and it is time for our end of year unboxing. So this is a huge pile, by the way. Basically, this is like 3 months worth of purchases, and I will caveat this by saying that I have cut back significantly on buying death cards over the past couple months because I did some math. I think my backlog currently is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,200 cards. And given the fact that even doing 2 videos a week, I'm doing maybe about 100 a year now, and I don't know how sustainable that is because I have no idea what my life's going to look like in 10 years. I kind of realized it doesn't make sense to keep buying cards at the rate that I have been when I'm not going to be able to get to them for a decade. So I'm still buying some cards. I'm specifically looking for list regiment cards and cards related to the fighting around Lake Ilmen. So if any of those come up, I might still buy them. But generally, I've cut back pretty significantly. So this is probably like the last big death card haul I'm going to actually film for a while. There's a few that are in editing right now. They're going to come out over the course of 2025. But yeah, I did an unboxing like this, a bit more informal at the end of 2023. And it was pretty well received. And during that video, I talked about how we were at, I think, like 920 subscribers at that point, and how I was pretty sure we were going to hit 1,000 in the new year. And then one random death card video blew up, and I got like 80 subscribers over the course of like 2 weeks. So by the end of January, I already had over 1,000, which was pretty crazy. And as of filming right now, I think we've been floating around 1,400, like 1,401, 1,402, somewhere in there. So I think it's quite feasible we hit 2,000 next year, which is like crazy because I started the channel in 2017 and I didn't hit 1,000 subscribers until 2024, this year. So there was like a 7-year period that it took to hit 1,000 subscribers, and now I might hit 2,000 in 2 years, which is pretty remarkable. I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, I want to thank you guys, for following these videos, interacting with me through the comments, the emails. Speaking of, if you did not know, I do have an email, ahumblecollector@gmail.com. It's listed in my YouTube channel's about page. So if you ever want to email me about, research or, if you have some really neat cards, you just don't have anybody to talk to about them, I'd love to see them. Fan mail, hate mail, whatever. Also recently got a P.O. box, which is box 304 in Rillton, PA. And I can't remember the zip code for that off the top of my head, so I will put that down in the description. So if you prefer to send your hate/fan mail physically, you can send it that way. Let's see, anything else going on? I promise at the end of 2023, 1,000 subscriber special. It is in the works. It's been like 80% done for the past year. Like I finished most of it in January last year, and then just haven't had the drive to really like bring it all together. Because unlike, the death card videos or the other military videos I do where, I'm looking at an item in my collection and trying to, beef up the research that I have on it for my records. This is a video where I'm talking about stuff that isn't in my collection, and so the drive to like sit down and do all that research and everything just isn't as strongly as like the death card stuff that I do. But yeah, so hopefully in the first half of like 2025 that will come out. We'll see how popular it is. It's very off the wall for this channel. Though if you follow the media podcast I do with my good friend Readout Productions, which is Fubar Digital Lounge right now, we have mentioned it there several times. I think I've mentioned it on his stream several times. So if you follow him or follow that channel, you probably already know what the 1,000 subscriber special is going to be. But yeah, this is basically all death cards. There's some photographs in here as well, and then I believe there's one package, I think it's this brown one down here, that has a very interesting non-death card funeral-related item that I got from a collector that I know down in, I think he's down in Tennessee. But yeah, I guess before we dive in, any other channel news I need to go through? The Vitebsk War game have not made much progress on. Board 2 is probably like 30% done right now. I've just been busy with other projects and been playing other games. Let's see. I think that's one big thing. Probably going to hit Death Card 300 in 2025, so definitely start thinking about what you guys want to see in that video. And I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, first take a sip of my rum and coke here. And then I'm going to move the camera down And we'll start going through this massive pile, and then I have a ton of death cards over here that I already opened up because, you know, the seller had their address on both sides of the envelope. So we'll go through all those as well. It's probably going to be a bit of a longer video, but it's Christmas. I figure you guys want to see this. And like I said, we're probably not going to have an unboxing of this scale for a very long time because I've cut back significantly in buying death cards. But yeah, so without further ado, I will grab the camera and we will go ahead and get started. Man, adjusting that took way longer than it should have. We'll start off here with this pink envelope. And these have been coming in for the past couple months. Frankly, I don't think I can tell you what's in really any of these except the photo package, then the package with the funeral item that I was talking about earlier. Alrighty. Oh, that's a nice one. So, that is a death card of Hans Baer there. Unteroffizier in a Panzer Regiment. Baer, the Iron Cross 2nd Class, Silver Panzer Assault Badge, who fell on November 22nd, 1941 in the heavy fighting North Africa. There you go. And he's got his EK2 pinned on there. He's wearing the early Panzer Beret. So, very early war. I think it's a model 1935 Panzer Beret. So, they were used in the Polish campaign. I think very briefly in, like, the French campaign. And then they were basically phased out after that point. So, very unusual to see a card that has that. If I grab my trusty jeweler's loop here. When it comes to cards more desirable, like photos and features like this, I always want to double check and make sure that they are period. And yeah, this is definitely made on an old printing press, so definitely an authentic card there. It looks like a collector probably had this in an album at some point because they've cut off the top and the bottom, and somebody actually wrote in pencil to Brooke there. So I wonder if that's where he was killed. But yeah, you can see where the card was cut off. Kind of odd. I don't know why they would have done that, but yeah, we also have residue from like tape, it looks like, around the edges. Oh, it's still a pretty interesting card. I'll go ahead and move on here to the next one. We have so many to get through. This video is probably going to be like 2 hours long, and I apologize in advance for that. What do we got here? It's a neat postcard. It's also a neat postcard. All right, let's see here. Okay, that's everything out of there. All right, what do we got? So we have Wilhelm Josef Vudi, Obergefreiter and Artillery Regiment. We have a nice lot of biographical information there, and it looks like he was killed September 12th, 1943, at the fighting near Orel. And we actually could see, I don't know what medal that is off the top of my head here. But that's pretty unusual to see. Part of a ribbon bar. Is that like the Prague clasp for like the Sudetenland medal? Is that the Sudetenland medal that has the Prague clasp? I can't remember. That's kind of a neat backing too. Yeah, it's kind of a neat one. Next up we have 4-panel here, it looks like. Which end opens? Is it a 4-panel? It should be. There we go. Aloy Schlappinger, soldier from Moose House, Obergefreiter in Gebergsjäger Division, Baer of the Iron Cross 2nd Class, who was killed April 6, 1941 in Greece. Oh, on the Greek-Bulgarian border, it looks like. That's a pretty unusual card. Next up, we have 4-panel for Ferdinand Huber, who was an Unteroffizier in the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment List. So, you might have noticed when I mentioned this earlier, the List Regiment is one of the units I collect specifically for. The reason being, this is the unit that Hitler served in during World War I. There's an excellent book that came out a few years ago documenting all their World War I service. And interestingly, during World War II, Infantry Regiment 199 carried on like the honorific of the List Regiment. And so they got a special cuff title they got to wear. And as far as I can tell, they really didn't get any other like preferential treatment. They suffered some pretty horrendous casualties on the Eastern Front. And there's never been like an official unit history written for them that I've been able to find. So I've started like gathering cards for them in the hopes of maybe someday like being able to put something together, kind of documenting their progress through World War II. But yeah, so he was killed on April 13th, 1918 in the heavy fighting at Montdidier. And it looks like he was shot in the head at the age of 27. So I'm going to have to reference that book when I go back and research this card, but I'm assuming there'll be some information about that battle. Now we have a nice card here for Eric Lonkus, who fell on September 24th, 1944 after being heavily wounded. And we can actually see that's a real photo here. Sometimes families would paste those on the cards because it was cheaper, I think, than having the plate made that would go on here. I can't imagine by much, though. So yeah, definitely an interesting one. And I've been trying to get more Kriegsmarine cards over the past few years just because I know people are really interested in like the naval warfare with like the U-boats and things. But for some reason, the U-boat cards just command such a premium. I know why, because U-boats are cool. But it's like ridiculous. Like a U-boat card is like 40 to 50 bucks at least, usually. And I just, I'm more of an Eastern Front guy, so sometimes it's hard to justify spending that much money on a U-boat card. But moving on here to the next envelope. All right, is that everything that's in there? Oh, there's a postcard in here as well. And it is a World War II period postcard. That's cool. I like that WHW stamp there, 1942, 1943. It's actually just a picture of birds. Looks like it's just a Christmas card. That's pretty neat. I'll have to research that later. And let's see what's in the plastic here. Looks like just one card, 4-panel. Josef Hawker, who was an Oberleutnant and company commander in an infantry regiment, bear the Iron Cross 1st and 2nd class, the Infantry Assault Badge, veteran of the campaign in France, who died on November 20th, 1941, in an assault in the East while leading his company, it looks like. So, company commanders and, similar higher-ranking officers, really interesting to research because generally if you can find a unit history, they're usually mentioned by name. I haven't shown any of those videos on the channel yet, but I do have some higher-ranking officers in the queue to research, so hopefully I get the chance to kind of talk about those moving on. Because one thing I've noticed about difference between American and German unit histories is the German unit histories focus a lot on the officers, like lieutenants, Oberleutnants, Hauptmanns, captains, lieutenants, things like that. And American unit histories tend to focus a lot more on the actions of like normal soldiers. So it's kind of interesting. So if you do find a like slightly higher ranking officer, odds are pretty good they'll show up in the unit history. And I think that's the only one in there. Another postcard of bakery somewhere. And let's see what we have here. Cut that open. Let's see here. There we go. I think I'd be better at opening these after all these years. All right, so we have one death card here. Oh, there we go. 2 brothers, Georg and Josef Degenbeck. So Georg was a Gefreiter infantry regiment, died March 15th, 1945 at, let's see, fighting, looks like shrapnel he was killed by. And then Josef Degenbeck, who was a, oh, he was on the Scharnhorst. Look at that. Killed on the Scharnhorst December 26th, 1943. And if I take a look here under my jeweler's loop, that is indeed a period card. So I have one for the Gneisenau that I did a while ago, but it's interesting to have another battleship here, the Scharnhorst. Interestingly enough, you remember that old miniature game, Axis and Allies? Well, there's the board game Axis and Allies, but then there was like a naval, like collectible miniatures game that was out for a while. And actually, the Scharnhorst was like the big battleship that I had, that I pulled out of one of those packs, which is pretty neat. So moving on here. This video is going to be 2 hours long. If I keep going off on tangents. Come on. There we go. Looks like a sales invoice, maybe. It is not. Just a piece of paper protecting the card. Must be from that same seller. It's another one that's cut off. But we have Josef Geigenberger here, who's a Gefreiter infantry regiment and was killed in the heavy fighting at Otrada in Russia on October 4th, 1941. And yeah, once again, the top and bottom of the card are cut off. Very strange. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Let's see. Next card here, or next envelope here. So I had to cut there because one of those postcards was a nude statue, and I don't think YouTube would like that. But the card that was in there is actually a pretty interesting one. This is for Prince Anselm Albert of von Thurn and Taxis, who was born in Regensburg April of 1924, fell on February 25th, 1944 as an Unteroffizier, reserve officer candidate in a light infantry gun company, or gun platoon, it looks like, in the fighting at Kervoy Rog. So, I have another card for, I think, another prince of Thurnund Taxis, or another German prince there, because the nobility was not exempt from being drafted during the war. So I have at least one other prince, I think, in my collection, and then I have a knight as well. Not like a Knight's Crossbow, I mean, I have those too, but like an actual, like, knight, like, his name has a Ritter, or Knight honorific in front of it. It's kind of unusual. There's so many of these. All right, next one here. Okay, more cards. Let's see, how do we want to open this up? Let's try that and that. There we go. So, what do we have here? Card looks like it's got a tear in it. Let's see. First one we have Ignaz Langeder, fighter in an artillery regiment. It was killed after 2 years of military service on December 23rd, 1941, on the African front. And we can actually see him in his tropical uniform there. And next up we have an HCOM backing, and then a card for two brothers here, Albert and Aloy Holzleitner. Albert was killed on March 30th, or he died March 20th, 1943 in a reserve hospital in Prague at the age of 19. And then Aloy was a chauffeur and an Obergefreiter in a flak battalion, or flak detachment, buried the Iron Cross 2nd Class, Eastern Front Medal, Infantry Assault Badge, veteran of the war from 1939 1944, and then was killed on February 13th, 1944, after being heavily wounded at the age of 24 at Nikopol in Russia. Or that's where his grave is, Nikopol in Russia. And the last card in that envelope is Rudolf Strautner, who is a lieutenant and battery commander in an artillery regiment, fell on August 29th, 1944 in Greece. So another Greek card there. I don't have too many from the Greek campaign, for obvious reasons. There weren't a lot of casualties, at least for the Germans. Alrighty, next up here. Looks like we might have another period postcard here. Alright, another period postcard. Another interesting stamp. What's the date on that? Can't see. Huh. It's another one I'll have to see about translating. And then the actual death card that was in here is for Georg Wollinger, who was killed on October 23rd, 1944 at Aachen at the age of 18. So another big battle there. It's kind of a neat Marian shrine as well. The college that I went to actually had a Marian grotto under the basilica. And it was quite a nice place to go if you just needed some time to think. Because basically nobody was ever down there. It was very quiet, very peaceful. Allegedly it was haunted down there too, but I never saw anything. Let's see what this says, because it's another one of the ones where the seller, I think, does some research sometime. Oh, okay. So we had the Scharnhorst earlier, and this is a card for a sailor from the Bismarck, the big battleship, killed May 27th, 1941 at the age of 18. And let me look at it under the trusty jeweler's loop here. That is indeed a period card for the Bismarck, so I can check that one off the book. Yeah, so Michael Kolbinger here was 18 when he was killed. Yeah, you see Bismarck cards not super unoften. That wasn't really a real word. I feel like I need another drink. But when it comes to, like, fake or, like, copied cards, Bismarck is one of the big ones. Anything related to Bismarck, the SS, Normandy invasion, that's the kind of stuff you really need to be careful for fakes. And if you're interested in finding out, how to determine whether a card is a reprint or a period original, I recommend, I have another sales invoice here, I recommend that you check out my video on the topic, which I'll link up above. And looking at this invoice, oh, it's actually a letter. I don't know what that is because I don't read German very well. But yeah, the card in here is for Emil Zellner, who was a Jaeger in a Gebrücksjäger regiment, who was killed April 14th, 1943 in the fighting in Russia. Very nice HCOM backing there. HCOM's probably my favorite card manufacturer, because they would actually design like the blank cards, and they would sell them to like the local, village or towns like print shops. I still, after all of these years, have not figured out who HCOM actually is. So if anybody knows what the HCOM company actually was, I would very much appreciate it if you would reach out to me, because I've been trying to figure it out for years now. So let's see. We have an actual like card here. It's sealed. Okay. That's a first. I've had, as you've seen, postcards taped together before, but never like an actual card. So let's see what we have here. Oh, that's cool. Card for Gerhard Tomps, who was a Gefreiter and a Gruppenführer in an infantry regiment, who died on May 5th, 1942 in Russia. And we can actually see he's got his helmet there that he's holding in his arms in his photo, which is pretty cool. You don't see helmets too often in death card photos, so it's always interesting when one shows up. I will say that the card stock is a bit interesting, but looking at it here, it does seem to be a period print. I do get the question occasionally about what the paper quality is on these. It varies significantly from card to card. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's like tissue paper. Well, not quite that bad, but it's pretty thin. This card here is for Simon Casper, who was an Obergefreiter in a motorized artillery battalion, veteran of the campaigns of Belgium and France, who was killed in the fighting at Tobruk on September 2nd, 1941. So another North Africa card there. Luckily, we're going through these a bit faster than I thought we would. Luckily, these are like 1 or 2 cards in envelope. But we still have the whole pile of like 50-plus cards that I had to open previously, as I discussed. So, getting tired. Ooh, we got some like period-ish postcards here, it looks like. And then we'll cut through here. Let's see what we got. Finish cutting these apart. Let's see. That's a more modern one. And then, actually, that one doesn't look like it was ever shipped. But anyway, we've got a nice pack of cards here. So let's figure out where this is. It's taped there. Oh, weird. It was like not taped there. There's just a hole in the side of it. Let's see. There we go. So we have Obergefreiter Leo Cooper, who was a member of a Funkerabteilung, which I believe is a Funker Communications, I think, or like radio op communications, that kind of thing. And he was killed March 7th, 1944 by Ospovici in Russia. And very nice outdoor photo here. We can see some kind of large building in the background. He's got his bayonet on his hip. Super cool. I love photos like that have like equipment and stuff, because you just don't see it very often. I have a lot of cards with soldiers with rifles in my collection, swords, pistols. I have yet to find a soldier posing on a funeral card with a submachine gun or a machine gun or a tank. So if anybody sees one of those, let me know, because I've been looking. Next one here we have is for Aloy Krieger, who was an Obergefreiter and a Gruppenführer, bearer of the Iron Cross Second Class, Infantry Assault Badge, and the Wound Badge, who fell on November 20th, 1944, in the heavy fighting in Hungary at the age of 33. Then we have Johann Handel, who was a Gefreiter in the staff company of infantry regiments, who fell on November 9th, 1941, and is buried in Ostrevki in Russia. We can actually see his marksmanship lanyard there. Let's see. Next up, we have Johann Gegenfurtner, who fell on August 2nd, 1944, in the heavy fighting in the East after being wounded at the age of 19 and a half. And then we have Josef Raith von Regen. So we have a von there, so another nobility member. Gefreiter and sharpshooter in a Jaeger regiment. Fell on July 5th, 1944 by Kovel at the age of 20 and a half. So sharpshooter card here. This is, again, one that you don't see too often. And I'll take a quick look under the jeweler's loop here. And that is period. Excellent. Yeah, luckily you don't run into fake cards very often, at least right now. So next up we have for Gustav Delian, who was an Obergefreiter in a Fallschirmjäger regiment, paratrooper regiment, who died at the age of 33 in the heavy fighting in Italy on the Adriatic coast. And it looks like that was in November of 1944. Put these back in this protective sleeve. So you can see what I was talking about, why I'm trying to cut back a little bit on the amount of cards I've been buying, because I think I've already unboxed in this video more cards than I did this past year. Like, it's frankly kind of ridiculous. So, and things might change. I mean, you know, I might be able to do more videos. Life might tell me I can't do as many videos as I'm doing right now. You just never know. So, moving on here to the next envelope. Got another sales invoice in there, it looks like. It actually was not just paper protecting the card. And we have the card here for Aloy Engelhardt, who was an Obergefreiter, or an Obergrenadier in an assault regiment, and was killed on March 6, 1943 on the Ilmensee, or Lake Ilmen. So, Lake Ilmen's come up in a lot of cards recently, so I've started, like, specifically looking for people from that area. But we have a really nice photo here of him with his Mauser and some of his web gear and stuff. So, very cool. Let's see, next envelope. Let's see here. This is one of the ones where the seller actually has done some preliminary research. So the card here for Johann Kaltenecker, who was a Gefreiter in a Bavarian Gebrauchsjäger regiment, which is very unusual phrasing there, fell on September 14th, 1939 by Zboyska von Lemberg at the age of 23. And he was apparently a member of the 98th Gebrauchsjäger Regiment, which I believe I do have other cards for in my collection. And then the other card that we have here is for Raymond Gererstorfer, who was an Oberfeldwebel, which I believe is like a staff sergeant in a Grenadier Regiment, bear the Iron Cross First Second Class, Infantry Assault Badge, the Close Combat Class, the Eastern Front Medal, and the Wound Badge. Veteran of the campaigns in Poland, France, and Russia, who, after 7 years of service, fell on November 25th, 1943, in the heavy fighting west of Gemel from a Bockschuss, which I believe Bock is stomach, I think, off the top of my head. But yeah, clearly very decorated veteran soldier. He has the marksmanship lanyard there. He's got his ribbon bar. And he was a member of the 7th Infantry Division, which I might have a book for them. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. Alrighty. So, another card here, another envelope. I accidentally grabbed two. We'll do that one first. Alrighty. Card just in the envelope. That's, usually it's at least in plastics. That's a bit unusual. It's a 4-panel. If we open it up here... There we go. So we have a nice full panel there of Heinrich. This is Heinrich Kraus, Obergefreiter in an infantry regiment, veteran of the campaigns in France and the Balkans, buried the Iron Cross Second Class and the Wound Badge, who fell on August 2nd, 1942 in the heavy fighting in the East. So a really nice like studio photo there of him in his greatcoat. And it looks like... I thought that was a cuff title for a second, but it looks like the photo is just scuffed there. It's still pretty interesting. And... Rostov is written on there in pencil, so I wonder if he's killed at Rostov-on-Don, maybe? I have to look. Yeah, it's weird. Every now and then you see, like, pencil, like, notes on death cards, and I've only found them to be accurate, like, half the time, really. So I'm always curious how people, like, came up with the information they end up putting on there. I believe this is another sales invoice, probably. Actually, it is not. All right. So this is the card of... I'm sure nothing else in there, and there's not... this is the card of Egon Katzinger, who was an Unteroffizier in the Luftwaffe, died on December 27th, 1943 in the Reserve Hospital in Lauterhofen by Amberg, at the age of 23 and a half. We have a really cool photo of him doing, like, desk work there. So I wonder if he was, like, a clerk or something. But yeah, very unusual. You don't see that in the photos too often. Actually, I can't think of another time I have seen that. So moving on here. Another one. It's probably not a sales invoice, but it's the same seller. It is not. Okay, perfect. Oh, that's an unusual uniform. Peppy Berndorfler, who is a flyer or pilot, who on October 12th, 1943, after being heavily wounded, died at the age of 18 in a reserve hospital in Munster. So interesting. Is that a like NSKK uniform? Maybe. I'm not super familiar with that. I know I've seen that uniform on a couple other cards. It's one of the early, like pre-World War II Nazi organizations, but for the life of me, I can't remember off the top of my head. All right, so the next one we have. Oh man, another sales invoice, I think. Yeah, a car driving by. That's nice. Yeah, I was gonna film this video like an hour earlier, but my neighbor decided it was a great time to start doing stuff on his backhoe, even though it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday. He hasn't done any work all day, but whatever. We have a pretty worn out card here, but a very nice photo for Theodor Heindel, who was a Meldfar in an infantry regiment. Don't know what that is off the top of my head. Veteran of the campaign in Poland, who died on August 14th, 1941 in an accident at a field hospital in the east. We have him there again with his Mauser, fully kitted out. Very cool. And that door there, I wonder if that's like the front door to his family house. Like this looks like a picture that was taken right before he left. But yeah, super cool. And then the other card we have here is for Franz Schmidt, who was a Panzer Grenadier who fell on February 24th, 1944 in the heavy fighting in the east. And we have a really nice outdoor photo of him sitting on some rocks there, which is pretty cool. And I love these more like personalized photos because, like I said, you don't see them super often. And it definitely is a period card. I mean, not that I really expect anybody to fake that. Moving on here. So that's like the regular envelopes, I think, and then we're getting into like the mailers. All right, and we have the death card here for Ignaz Neuner, who is a Sanitäter Obergefreiter in a Geburgsjäger regiment, who fell on June 28th, 1943 on the Icemere fronts up in Finland. And he has some kind of badge there. Can't tell what it is from the photo. And then somebody wrote there Kuskavi, it looks like. And I'm not super familiar with the Finnish front, so I'll have to look that up later. And talk about paper quality again, you can see this is very thin and kind of wavy. Now, moving on. I have no idea what's in this one. Let's see here. I want to... Let's just do that. Alrighty. Nothing else in there. Take a quick drink. Alrighty. Where's the tape holding this together? Right there. Huh. Got a photo of a Kriegsmarine soldier there, it looks like. Oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. That's not a Kriegsmarine soldier at all. I apologize. Oh man, that was really embarrassing. This is was a card, it looks like it's in pieces, for Herbert H. Watson, formerly of the HMS Warrior, who died at Plymouth Naval Hospital on October 4th, 1918 at the age of 24. So, very unusual British World War I funeral card there. How it would have gone together originally. HMS Warrior, I remember looking up, I think it was one of the last British ships that sank after the Battle of Jutland, like from the damage that it took during the battle. So, very cool card. Definitely looking forward to researching that one. I'm very embarrassed that I misidentified that. Because I was looking at that, I was like, why would I buy just a random like cardstock photo of a Kriegsmarine guy? That shows where my knowledge ends, I guess. But yeah, I have a couple other British and non-German cards in my collection. I mean, British, Italian, French. But for some reason, there really aren't many. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a difference in the way that, like, military information was put on funeral cards, or, like, why the German ones are so collectible and why I can't seem to find any other ones. I don't know. If anybody has a collection of, American or French or, really any other country's soldiers' funeral cards, I'd be interested. So let me know. So continuing on here. There we go. Oh yeah, I remember find this one. So talking about non-German cards, I found this one on eBay quite randomly. I was just looking at death cards by year, or funeral cards by year, and I found this for a Corporal Dominique de Ranieri, who died on July 13th, 1944. So possibly World War II combat related. Could also be that Corporal Dominic here, you know, served in the military in the 30s and then died, you know, just happened to be during World War II. I have no idea. Was not pre-researched. Could be anything. But, you know, it could very well be a World War II card. I mean, the date, you know, military rank, everything. So I guess we'll find out when we eventually get there in about 10 years, as I said earlier. But usually what will happen is when I do my, you know, 100, like for what I did for my 100th death card, 200th death card, but I'll keep doing moving forward, is you guys can vote on what kind of card or what card you want to see in that spot moving forward. So we got the sales invoice here. There's another one where the seller does some nice pre-research for me. And we got some interesting ones here. If I can take the tape off this packet, that's fine. All right, so let's start going through here. So the first card we're going to look at is for Theodore Unger here, who was an Unteroffizier in a Grenadier Regiment and died November 10th, 1941 in Mittelmeer at the age of 33. And looking at the invoice here, it looks like he was a member of the 713th Infantry Division and died on Crete. So, pretty interesting there. Next card we have is for Johann Wittmann, who is a Hauptmann and battalion commander who died on April 17th, 1942, after being heavily wounded at Geschatsk. And it looks like he was a member of the 17th Infantry Division, Infantry Regiment 55. So, I don't know if I have their history or not. I guess we'll find out when I get there. We have a card for two brothers here, Johann and Aloy Winter. So, pretty interesting. Obviously, Band of Brothers, Dick Winters, you know, pretty famous American soldier there, so odd that the last names are so similar. And Johann was killed on September 14th, 1941. He was a Gefreiter Infantry Regiment, and it looks like he worked in a field kitchen. And then Aloy Winter here was a soldier in a Grenadier Regiment, and he fell on February 22nd, 1943, also maybe in a field kitchen? I think that's Feldkirchen is field kitchen. Kirchen? Or no, it's Kirchen Church. Oh, man, my German's awful. I apologize. But it looks like one of these brothers was in the 100th Infantry Division. So that'll be pretty interesting to research. Next up here, we have Franz Alzner. Alzner. Obergefreiter in a Pioneer Battalion. Fell on December 13th, 1942 by Reshev. See, he's wearing his helmet in the photo there. And Franz was a member of the 337th Infantry Division. And then we have Friedrich Edenhofer, who was an Unteroffizier in a Gebirgsjäger Regiment, a veteran of the campaigns in Poland, France, and Greece, who died July 9th, 1944 on the Western Front at the age of 27. And it looks like he was killed in Normandy, which makes sense because July, right after the Normandy landings, about a month later. And then we have half of somebody's card here. I don't know if that was a bonus or... Yeah, so he's wearing an assault gun wrap. There's the invoice notes, but yeah, for some reason, the rest of the card is not here. That's kind of odd. And to be honest, I bought this so long ago, I can't remember if I knew that or not, that it only had half the card there. All right, get these back in the plastic, and we'll move on. Alrighty, so moving on here to the next one. I think this is from the same seller. So probably's got a sales invoice in there. It does. This is one of the big lots. So we have a whole bunch of stuff there. So this is all one lot related to an officer in the OB there. So we have, there's a photo of him there. Carl Schmidt. And I believe, yeah, here's his... the funeral invitation. Oberleutnant Carl Schmidt, bearer of the Spanish, the Iron Cross Second Class. So he'd been awarded the Iron Cross in the First World War, got awarded again in the Second World War. And it looks like he died at a hospital in Yugoslavia at the age of 43 on December 29th, 1941. But yeah, so that's him there in that photo. And then we have a cutout. Yeah, buried a Spanish Iron Cross first class and died. Interesting. So this says it was in the East. And then we also have another photograph of him there. It's a bit of an unusual lot. You don't really see these very often. We have a telegram here. I believe this is one probably telling them he had died. Maybe? Yeah, Gefallen. It's unusual. I don't think I have one of these telegraph envelopes in my collection. Or telegram. I actually have a telegram from Eddie Rittenbacher somewhere, if you can believe that. But then, yeah, it looks like to the family of him. Oh, wow, no, it's from him to his family. Look, signed Carl. Yeah, November 30th, 1941, and he was killed, December 25th, I think. Yeah, December, so just a month before he died. And there's 2 pages here. I thought there were 2 pages here, maybe not. No, it's just one. But yeah, very unusual lot. So this one actually obviously came from the family, since they have, a letter from him to them. And, the telegram and everything. You don't really see complete death card sets like this very often, which is why I picked this one up. And I believe there's one more in here. They had a bunch. This seller got a ton of these in. I don't know where they found them. But very interesting. And they're going to be really unique videos when they come out, I think. But moving on here. We got another one. This might be the other. I think there's one more big lot like that I bought. So let me put that off camera. No, this is just a bunch of other cards, but they have been researched, so that is good. That's what we have here. If I open this up. Okay, so we have Ludwig Diermeyer, who was a Funker, so I think radio operator, fell January 4th, 1943 in a reserve hospital. And it looks like he died in Gosselier, Belgium, actually, per the seller's research. And then we have the card of Zacharo Wolfmiller, who was an Unteroffizier in a Gebrüsjäger regiment, buried the Iron Cross second class, the assault badges, wound badge, died on August 27th, 1942 in the Caucasus. And we see the death room there. Very unusual. You don't see it on death cards very often. So I'm wondering, that probably means that his family or him were not particularly religious, and that's why we don't really see any Christian iconography really anywhere on this card. And it looks like he was a member of the 99th Gebrüsjäger Regiment and was killed at Hill 910. And I'm pretty sure I have a unit history that talks about them somewhere. Next up, we have Josef Huff, who was a Gefreiter in Infantry Regiment, died on April 21st, 1942, after being heavily wounded in the East at the age of 25. And it looks like he was a member of Felddivision Meindl and died at Saraha, Russia. Now, Felddivision Meindl was the first Luftwaffe Felddivision that was put together. It was kind of like the prototype. And the first card I ever got for Ludwig Troll, he was a member of that same division, so I always try to pick that up when I see it. Next up, we have Rupert Baumgartner, who was an Obergefreiter in Artillery Regiment, buried the Iron Cross Second Class, Eastern Front Medal, and the wound badges, who died in a munitions wagon explosion on September 22nd, 1944. So very unusual cause of death there. And unfortunately, no unit information for him. Alright, get these back in the sleeve here. I think we'll be closer to like an hour and a half than 2 hours, which is probably good. Now, when I have these longer unboxings, are you guys, like, cool sitting through these? Would you prefer that they be, like, a little bit shorter? You know, maybe break them up a little bit? Let me know, because I'll keep that in mind for the future, because frankly, it's difficult filming ones this long as well. This is really cool. So this is the one I was talking about at the beginning of the video. That's not a death card, but it is funeral related. I have no idea what the best way to open this is going to be. Let me just... I should just be able to rip it open, I think, without damaging what's in there. Let me just maybe cut a corner. Because it's cloth, so I don't want to accidentally nab it, you know? Okay, that worked. So I got the corner there. And let's see. So once I get the corner open, I should be able to slip a knife in there. And perfect, yeah. And I can just rip that open, and then I'll be able to put it on the table for you guys to see. This is cool. This is very cool. So, pull this out here. This is a funeral sash. It's still... Oh, it's in pieces. That's unfortunate. There it is. So this is for a Gottlob Sulz, who was an Obergefreiter who fell on July 25th, 1941 in Ukraine. So funeral sashes like these, my understanding is that if you were super high-ranking, like the party would actually like make a really nice one for you to have at your funeral. But for normal soldiers, like Gottlob here, basically like local community, somebody would maybe make these, or the family would get one, pay for one. And obviously material is pretty thin. I mean, these really don't survive at all. I don't think, I was telling him when he offered it to me, I was like, I don't think I've ever actually seen one for a normal soldier. Like, I've seen the party ones, I've seen a handful of the SS ones that have, questionable provenance, but not one for a common soldier. I did look him up before I bought it. I believe that he was a member of an artillery unit, if I remember correctly. But yeah, very unusual. You do not see these. I mean, I think this is the only one I've ever seen for a normal soldier, actually. I'm sure there's more out there, but it's the only one I've seen. So, very cool. I didn't realize it was in 2 pieces. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Because I was thinking of eventually getting like a wreath and maybe being able to display it like that. But, how it would have been at the funeral. But maybe it's better to just have it displayed flat. I'll think about it. But, I'll get it folded back up here so I can put it back in the bag. Yeah, if you've ever seen one for common soldiers, or if these are more common than I think, let me know, because they're pretty interesting. I definitely wouldn't be opposed to picking up more at some point. All right, next up is the second to last envelope. The last one will have photos in it. I think this is another big lot like that one that we looked at earlier for Carl. Alrighty, so going through here. All right, so this is for Friedrich and Hydor Gastager. Friedrich was an Obergefreiter in a Geburtsjäger regiment, died April 21st, 1945. And Hydor here was an Oberschütze in an infantry regiment who fell on January 10th, 1942 in the East. And it looks like, I don't know if that's correct. The research seems to be... Oh, that's why, because this is a card for 4 brothers. So I was like, that doesn't match up. It's on the invoice. So, yeah, no unit for them, at least right now. But then we also have on the back Johann Gastager and Albert Gastager. Johann was a Gefreiter in an artillery regiment, died January 30th, 1944 on the Italian front. And Albert Gastager was an Obergefreiter in a pioneer battalion who fell in the East on March 24th, 1944. So I've never seen a card for 4 brothers that's printed like this. I mean, every panel is just a different brother. Very unusual. We also have here the card for Oscar and Benedict Schiel. Oscar was an Obergefreiter in a Jaeger regiment who died on March 1st, 1943. And Benedict was an Obergefreiter and a rider, or in a rider unit, so a cavalry unit, looks like. Bearer of the War Merit Cross with swords, Eastern Front Medal, and the Rider's Badge. And veteran of the campaign in the West who fell on March 8th, 1943, southwest of Orel. And it looks like one of them was in the 5th Jaeger Division, Swarm Regiment 14, looks like. All right, so next up here we have... Oh, yeah, I remember this one. This is another four-brother card here for Aloy, Johann, Heinrich, and Alphonse Kingelbrunner. So Aloy was a Schütze infantry regiment who died September 14th, 1939 at Przemysl. Yeah. Johann Kingelbrugger, who died... he was a FAR, which I believe is like a driver in a light artillery unit. And he died February 9th, 1941 in a hospital in Munich. We have Heinrich Kingelbrunner, who was an Oberfreiter in a Grenadier regiment, who died on August 28th, 1943. And Alphonse here, who died December 21st, 1945. So they're in chronological order there. You don't see 8-panel cards very often. I think I've seen maybe one or two others. I think I might have one other one in my collection. But yeah, 8 panels are very unusual. Which brings us to this one, which is for Franz and Friedrich Wiebert, as well as their parents. So it looks like their father, Johann, was the first one to die. He died April 21st, 1935 in Eichenberg. And then Friedrich here was an Unteroffizier who died on September 1st, 1941 in Russia. Franz died March 23rd, 1945 in Neustadt Wied. And then their mother passed away on March 6, 1946. So just a year after her last son had died. Yeah, these family cards are always hard. You can't help but wonder, dying a year after her last son, if that, dying of a broken heart, or, just not really having the will to go on. Yeah, also a very unusual one, because it doesn't look like it was ever actually a paneled card, but somebody folded it up like it's a 6-panel at some point. But it kind of is, because it has the 3 different designs on the back. It's been unusual. Alright, and then the big lot here is for a company commander in the 19th Panzer Division. So we have Heinrich Killian here. Looks like it's him in that photo. Put an X over it. Let's see. Letter to his parents from 1940. Another one from 1939. So maybe that was it. So the letter here is talking about how their son died. So it wasn't the battalion chief, not the one that died. It was his parent, or his Heinrich Killian. And then this letter is addressed to Philip, his father. And then talking about how his son had died. And then signed by that guy, who, according to the research here, looks like it was a company commander in the 19th Panzer Division. So yeah, these KIA letters are really interesting. I'll have to do the proper time to read that later. Yeah, very unusual set for sure. Alright, and we're back. Currently just under the hour mark, it looks like. Have another drink, and then this is the last package that I have to open up. And this is photos. So I'm gonna tear this open off screen here real quick, just because the side with the tear is also the side with my address on it. Alright, so looking at these photos, I have a bit of an interesting one here. I believe... Oh man, I'm blanking on what SS unit this is. But yeah, we have an SS truck there with a swastika painted on the hood. We have a unit marking on the side there, and then I can't remember what SS division had the wheel swastika as their emblem. I'm blanking. I want to say Das Reich off the top of my head, but I might be wrong on that. We have also another very interesting photo. We have a group of German soldiers here, and then we actually see one guy who's been wounded, who's laying there, I guess relaxing. He's been bandaged up really. He must have taken some shrapnel to the face, maybe. Yeah, it looks like he's smiling though, so I guess he's probably hopped up on morphine maybe. But yeah, very unusual photo, not one that I've really seen before. We have another one here of a flak, a half track in a field, it looks like. Probably somewhere in the east. Oh, this is actually an official taken photo by Georg Bruting there from Coburg. Yeah, a lot of units had like official photographers with them, and then what they would do is they would create copies of the photos they took and sell it to the guys in the units. So a lot of times they'd end up marketing it with like their personal stamp like that. We have another one here of a infantry gun firing on a mountain somewhere. Looks like in the Balkans maybe, or the Caucasus. In fighting somewhere. Palpe? Don't know. Yeah, firing on some positions up in the mountains. And then this is a really cool one of just these Gebirgsjägers way up in the mountains. Probably on just like a training hike. They got feathers in their caps. Just kind of a neat photo. But yes, that's all the ones that I had to open up. Now, I still have all of the ones that I had to open previously that I can show you guys here. So, try to go through these relatively quickly. So we have Vitus Ackhammer here, who was a soldier in a pioneer regiment, fell in the West on June 18th, 1940, and he was a member of Infantry Regiment 468. And then next up we have Michael Schrotzhammer, who fell on December 29th, 1942. He was a Gefreiter at Panzerjäger up Tailong. And he was apparently killed at Tunis in Africa, which is Tunisia. So another North African card there. And the last one here is for Aloy Hasselgruber, who is a soldier Grenadier Ersatz Battalion, who died on March 11th, 1945 at Oder Bruckenkopf. And interestingly, according to the research Seller did, that Silo Heights was where he was killed. And very interestingly, the backplates here seem to have almost like a green tint instead of the normal black. I don't know if that's a problem with the ink or if that was intentional, but it's kind of odd. I don't remember really seeing that before. And then next up here we have the card of, if I could open it, card of Georg Meyer, who was a fighter in the List Regiment who died in January of 1945. So another nice List Regiment card there. Probably an early post-war based off the paper quality and everything else. Then another one that we have here for Georg Stadler, who died on September 13th, 1946, while being transported home from Russia at the age of 35. It seems like I have a lot of cards for guys that died on the way home from Russia, which obviously a lot of these guys weren't in great shape. Soviets probably really didn't care that much, whether they made it home in one piece or not. So it seems like it was a fairly common occurrence. It's a bit of an unusual card for three brothers with all their photos kind of smushed in there. We have Tony, Aloy, and Peter Sigmund. Tony was a Hauptmann, or a captain, who was killed on September 14th, 1943 by Kataro. Aloy was a Gefreiter who was killed September 17th, 1943 at Janina. And then we have Peter, who died June 25th, 1944 by St. Paul. St. Paul. I'm assuming that's in France, maybe? But yeah, interestingly, Aloy and Tony died 3 days apart. That must have been rough for their family. Yeah, very unusual one. I've seen cards for three brothers before, but not all smushed in like that. All right, next card that we have here is for Hans and August Kroer. August was an Unteroffizier in an infantry regiment, veteran of the campaigns in Poland, the Balkans, bearer of the Iron Cross Second Class, Infantry Assault Badge, who fell on January 15th, 1942 in the East. And Hans was a Gefreiter in Fallschirm Storm Regiment 1, and was veteran of the campaigns in France and the Balkans, who died May 20th, 1941 at Crete. Very cool card. Very unusual to see the actual unit listed out there. You saw it a lot on World War I cards, but not really on World War II cards, as you've seen throughout my videos and this one as well. There's a lot of debate as to why that is. It seems like there was like a concern about operational security, that like spies were going to be looking at the death notices in the papers to like see like what units were fighting where. But I would have imagined the same thing would have been going on during World War One. So I don't know why it was acceptable back then. One of my personal theories is that, during World War One, a lot of these units came from specific areas. You had the Bavarian regiments, you had the Prussian regiments, and so I think people had a lot more like connection to the units that their fathers and sons and everybody were serving in. Whereas in World War II, you were going to end up in who knows where, I guess. And I know that like certain divisions pulled from certain areas for their units, but so did a lot of other divisions. But I think that's my personal opinion as to why that maybe was. If there's actually like an official like government issued document saying, hey, don't put this information in death cards anymore. I've never seen it. I would love to see it if you know where it is. But I think that's all pretty much just conjecture on the part of collectors at this point. And we got a bundle of cards here. We got Franz Brondel, who is a Leutnant in a Fusilier regiment, bearer of various awards, who died March 25th, 1944 in the East. Franz Alcoser, who is a soldier in an Aufklärungsabteilung, which is a reconnaissance unit, who fell on October 10th, 1941. Very cool. He seems to be outside like an apartment building, maybe. And then Georg Hopper, who was an Obergefreiter in a Grenadier regiment, who died August 3rd, 1943, after being heavily wounded in the East at the age of 35. And next up here we have Albert Vollner, who was bearer of the Silver Wound Badge, died November 12th, 1943, after being heavily wounded. Then we got another pack of death cards here. All right, Josef Hofer, who was bearer of the Iron Cross Second Class, Infantry Assault Badge, and the Crete Band, so Crete Armband, veteran of Crete, who died on August 1st, 1943 in the heavy fighting at Lake Ladoga. There's another lake up there by Leningrad. Very cool seeing the Crete Armband mentioned, and we actually see his Infantry Assault Badge and his ribbon there, his Georgsjäger patch on his shoulder. And then next up we have another 4-panel, it looks like, for Georg Rotzer, who was a Wagoneer in Westerskirchen and died on November 20th, 1942 in Russia. Very cool photo there showing him with his rifle and everything. Love seeing weapons in the photographs, as I've discussed previously. Next up we have Johann Mohr, who was a Gefreiter in Infantry Regiment, who fell on August 28th, 1942 in the fighting at the Ilmensee by Novgorod, so Lake Ilmen again. Specifically, it looks like Kolmoro is the village. All right, next up we have, that's a really thick cardstock there. I thought it was a 4-panel. Herr Franz Klaus, who died on January 8th, 1948, as a victim of the war. So the way that that's written there, victim of the war, it makes one wonder, was the wound physical or was it mental, emotional? Very curious. I'll have to look that up, see if I can get access to the civilian casualty records. And then next up we have Otto Abt, who is a battalion commander in a Jaeger regiment, bearer of the Iron Cross First Set Class, the Wound Badges, the Eastern Front Medal, and various other awards. Veteran of the campaigns in Austria and the Sudetenland, and was a veteran military 1939-1943. We can see the Edelweiss on the side of his cap there, indicating he's a Geberjäger. And then we have Richard Compensis. He was in the Kriegsmarine. He was a Seeberuf... oh my gosh, I'm not good at Kriegsmarine ranks. Seeberuchs Sockschuler. And he died December 30th, 1944, at the age of 15. I think makes him probably one of the youngest soldiers I've seen a card for. December 30th, 1944. Jeez, right at the end of the war. I wonder if he was actually on board a ship or if he was, been pressed into like a naval infantry kind of unit. All right, next up we have more cards. For Lambert Schnabel here, who's a postal assistant, who died July 19th, 1945 in a French POW camp at the age of 46, so probably a Volkssturm guy. And then Siegfried Uberreiter, who died February 22nd, 1944 at the age of 20 on the Italian front. This is a very cool card because the back is this very neat colored black, red, and white design. I really like this, actually. I've never seen another death card with a backing quite like that. Cardstock also indicates maybe like an early post-war production, just because it's very rough. Paper quality is not very good. But yeah, very cool. You don't see color backings very often, so it's always kind of a nice surprise. Alrighty, so we got more cards with research here, it looks like. Franz Kirschbauer, who was a Obergefreiter in a Grenadier Regiment, bearer the Infantry Assault Badge in silver, the Eastern Front Medal, and the Wound Badge, who fell in Russia on March 5th, 1944. And he was a member of the 376th Grenadier Regiment. We have Max Ziffelsberger, who was a Feldwebel and a Fliegerstaffel, bearer of the Iron Cross First Second Class, the Front Flyer Spange for War Flyers in silver and bronze, and it looks like he was shot down or died at Mzensk, Russia, according to the Sellers research. And then we have Wolfgang Ryle here, who was an Oberleutnant and company commander in a Nachrichten or communication detachment. And he died at Danzig on March 31st, 1945. All right, more cards here. We got Max Weitbold, who was buried the Iron Cross Second Class, and War Merit, I don't think that's War Merit Cross, various other awards. Sorry, my brain's kind of going. I've been doing this for a while. Died on January 14th, 1945 in the heavy fighting in the West at the age of 21. Picture of him there. We have Max Landstorfer, who was killed August 11th, 1944, or not killed, died while swimming in the Elbe, drowned at the age of 18. And he was a matrosa, so also a Kriegsmarine guy. Yeah, I did a video recently on a drowning death. I think it's going up in December, maybe early January. But yeah, for a guy that was in a supply unit just swimming in Russia and drowned in the summer. So a bit of an unusual cause of death there. And then Hans Krug, who was a Feldwebel in a Panzer Aufklärungsabteilung, so a Panzer reconnaissance unit, buried the Iron Cross First Second Class and the Panzer Assault Badge, who died on March 14th, 1942 after being heavily wounded in a field hospital in the East at the age of 24. We can see him in his Panzer wrap there. All right, we're getting somewhat closer. All right, next up we have Herr Pius Leitner, who was an Obergefreiter in the Luftwaffe, buried the Iron Cross Second Class, who fell on February 15th, 1942 in Russia. As we can see here, he was a fourth-year theology student, and he's actually pictured in some kind of garden holding a book, theology book, the Bible, something like that. Very cool. Very cool photo that you don't see very often. And then we have this card for Max Schwarzhuber, who was an Unteroffizier in a Granatwerfer Einheit, so a mortar unit, buried the Iron Cross Second Class, who died on December 30th, 1941 in the East. And we can see him decorated here with flowers. So it looks like he's actually getting ready to head back to the field. He probably got some leave. So yeah, so that means the Iron Cross Second Class that he has there, I'm assuming he would have been awarded that for actions in France probably. And then, spent some time at home and then, went off for the invasion of the Soviet Union in June. But yeah, very unusual photo and very, very cool to see. And then the other thing with this, I forgot about this, his field grave, I'm assuming that's his, is on the back there. So you do see that occasionally on death cards, but it's very unusual. I think I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen that. Next up, we have Sebastian Ernst, who was a soldier in an infantry communication company, died August 25th, 1942 in the heavy fighting in the East at the age of 18 and 10 months. And we have another outdoor photo there. It looks like he has actual signals patch on his sleeve, which is pretty cool. Next up, we have, if I figure out which side of this opens, there we go. Martin Moll, who was an Oberwachtmeister in an artillery regiment, and died after being heavily wounded on April 11th, 1945, at the age of 31. We actually have quite a ribbon bar there. Or at least one ribbon on his ribbon bar there. It's a bit of an unusual cipher on his shoulder as well. Then we have the card for Franz Xavier Voigt and P. Ludger Anton Voigt. Franz died October 14th, 1942 by Arel, and P. Ludger there, or Anton, died July 18th, 1943 by Belgorod. And then we have Johann Eder, who was killed May 5th, 1945 at the age of 20 on the Russian front. So literally right at the end of the war. I mean, May 8th, 9th is the end. So just a few days before everything finally ended. And then we have Grenadier Georg Garnweitner, who was at the 3rd Heeres Unteroffizier School for Panzer Grenadier training in Arnswald, I think. And he died at Baden on July 7th, 1944, at the age of 18, Verunglückt. What is Verunglückt? So he was at an Unteroffizier training school and died, maybe in an accident, I think. Again, this is when it would pay to know German, but he's there in his Panzer uniform. Yeah, funnily enough, I've picked up a lot of words and phrases over the years, but I'm far from, fluent enough to actually read these cards off the cuff. So it's a lot of finding the words that I actually recognize and kind of piecing them together. Alrighty. Then we have Hans Meyer, Feldwebel in a Grenadier Regiment, Bonkbeamter in a Leitgewehr Bonk in München. Oh, so is he like a signal light operator? I don't know. That's not making any sense to me. But he was buried the Iron Cross 1st, 2nd Class Infantry Assault Badge, the Wound Badge in gold, the Eastern Front Medal, and was a fighter in France and Russia who died on December 7th, 1943 after a mortar strike in the East at the age of 24. So lots of interesting information there. I'll definitely be looking forward to researching that one. Unteroffizier Ludwig Cerveni, who was a veteran of the campaigns of Poland, France, and the Balkans, buried the Iron Cross 1st, 2nd Class Infantry Assault Badge and the Bulgarian Honor Medal, who died on February 1st, 1943 in the East. Then we have Michael Schwarzfischer, Oberkreutzer in a Panzer Grenadier Regiment, who fell on July 25th, 1943 at the Cuban bridgehead, it looks like. Cuban Brückenkopf. Yeah, Cuban bridgehead. See, I know some words. Next up, we have Konrad Altmann, who was killed September 7th, 1943 by shrapnel to the head in Russia. Following death, his brother Georg, so Georg and Konrad are at the top there. These are actual photos that have been added to the card. August Hillenbrand, who was an Oberkreutzer in a Panzer Division, died on March 3rd, 1946 in a hospital in Wittenberg, so post-war. We can actually see his General Assault Badge there on his photo. Then we have Hans Rost, Gefreiter in a Panzerjägerabteilung, died August 13th, 1941, in an assault in Slavony in White Russia, so Belarus, at the age of 22. Then we have Franz and Johann Amberger. Franz was in a Panzer Regiment, an Obergefreiter in a Panzer Regiment, buried the Iron Cross 2nd Class, and died December 3rd, 1941 in Russia. Johann was also a Panzerjäger in a Panzer Regiment, and he died December 6th, 1941 in Russia, so just 3 days apart. Those two brothers were killed. I feel like we've had a few of those in this video, actually, where the dates are just very close. Oh, this is a cool one. Josef Bray, who was a Schütze in a Landschützeabteilung, who, in the heavy fighting, died on January 24th, 1943 in Deggendorf. Very cool here because he's smoking, and we can see he's actually using a cigarette holder, like a Bakelite cigarette holder. Very unusual. Don't think I've actually seen a photo showing one of those before. It's also a very neat plate design there with the sword and the bayonet. And the last card in this group, Rudolf Schockner, who was a machine gun Schütze in an infantry regiment, who died November 10th, 1941 at Artanovsk, Ukraine, after being heavily wounded. Or no, he was heavily wounded November 10th at Artanovsk, and died in the hospital in Artanovsk on November 18th, 1941 at the age of 20. We have a nice studio portrait there of him in his dress uniform with his gloves and his visor cap. All right, just a few more packets. We're getting near the end. All right, so we have death card of Obergefreiter Franz Xavier Heisenhuber, who died February 16th, 1944 at the age of 39 in a hospital in Solonici, it looks like. Then we have a 4-panel here for Hermann Bauer, who was an Oberfighter in an infantry regiment and died as part of a Stoßtruppe on March 21st, 1942 by Staraha, Russia, at the Ilmensee. And given the fact that he's Luftwaffe, he died at Staraha. I'm assuming he was in Division Meindl, but I'm not 100% sure off the top. But that would line up for where they were at. We have Rudolf Vogel, who was a soldier grenadier regiment, died after being heavily wounded east of Bobrusk on March 3rd, 1944. A very interesting photo of him in his RAD uniform there. Sebastian Wessner, Gefreiter in a Landschütze battalion, who died on January 6, 1942, after being heavily wounded in Krakenhaus at the age of 37. It's a nice photo. Very cool backplate design on this. I don't think I've seen that one before. Luitpold Weidinger, who was an Unteroffizier in a transport protection battalion, bearer of the War Merit Cross second class with swords, who died on January 19th, 1945 in Tonningen at the age of 40 after 4 years of service. So he was in a like a guard unit. I'm guessing, given the fact this is January of 1945, this is a post-war card, which this backing is quite fitting for. Actually, I really like that backing. And Canadian geese are flying over. I don't know if that'll pick up or not. Georg Pfisterer, who was an Obergefreiter and Funker in a battalion staff, veteran of the campaign in France and in the East, and also in Greece. He was the second member of the family to die, it looks like. Died on January 3rd, 1944, fighting partisans at the age of 24. Next up, we have Franz Schmidt. Oh, I have another card for him that I saw earlier. It's kind of a small world. But yeah, Franz Schmidt, Panzer Grenadier, died December 24th, 1944, with a nice outdoor photo there on the card. And the last one in this group is for Ludwig Stelzhammer, soldier in a Marine Stoßtruppe, which I don't think I've really seen before, who died on August 9th, 1941 in Riga at the age of 20. So a very unusual unit. Look forward to researching that. Alrighty. And next up here we have Willy Reckman, who was an Oberfreiter in a Marine Assault Battalion. Died February 3rd, 1944, after being heavily wounded in Finland, looks like. And then we have a 4-panel here for Bartholomaus and Josef Reith. Bartholomew here was a member of a reconnaissance squadron, died August 7th, 1944 in the West, so after the Normandy invasion. And Josef was an Oberfreiter, also in a reconnaissance unit, and died October 4th, 1944 in the East, at the age of 21. Alrighty. Alright, so this is a very interesting card. So this is for a whole family that was wiped out in a bombing raid on December 28th, 1944. Josef Graf, who had been born September 25th, 1885. His wife, Annie Graf, who was born on May 5th, 1895. And their children, Annie Schindler, born Graf, so she'd married a Schindler, born July 13th, 1920. Marianne Graf, who was born October 6th, 1922. Josephine Graf, who was born on November 25th, 1927. Clothide Graf, who was born on April 17th, 1932. Feldwebel Xavier Schindler, who had married Annie, and he was born on February 1st, 1920. And Josef Schubler, who was born January 11th, 1929. So, bombing raid 1944, the youngest member of this family was 12 when that happened. But yeah, basically the whole family wiped out, including the son-in-law. Yeah, I've seen a lot of cards for people killed during the bombing raids, but never that many all at once. And given it's December 28th of 1944, you can't help but imagine the family is, gathered together. They've just celebrated probably a rather rough Christmas. I mean, it's Germany 1944. And, they're trying to, enjoy each other's company. Probably trying to be optimistic going into 1945. And then bomb hits their house, and that's it. Just all gone. Wonder if anybody survived that. If there was another child or somebody else who maybe wasn't around. But next up, we have Richard Birkenetter, who fell on February 4th, 1945. Joseph Pfeiffer, who was a bakery helper and was in a coastal battery, apparently. And he died October 21st, 1942, from an artillery hit by Leningrad at the age of 21. Jacob Karpsinger, who was an Obergefreiter in infantry regiment, also a bakery helper. So the guy that I got this group of cards from, he collected bakery stuff for like decades. And he has thousands of cards, and a good chunk of them are people who either worked in bakeries in the military or prior to joining the military, which is kind of interesting. Jacob here died April 13th, 1942, after being wounded in the heavy fighting in the East. And yeah, his photo there with his sword. Always interesting seeing swords and stuff show up in these photos. Josef Greger was an Unteroffizier in the Luftwaffe who died April 2nd, 1942 in the East. Johann Kikla, who was a Gefreiter in a Gebirgsjäger regiment, bakery helper, died January 1st, 1942, south of Lake Ladoga in Russia. Siegfried Windziegel, who was an Obergefreiter in a heavy mortar unit of a Gebirgsjäger regiment, was a Rottenführer in the NSKK prior to the war. Bearer of the Iron Cross Second Class, Infantry Assault Badge in silver, and the Sudetenland Medal, who fell on January 20th, 1943 at Sinyavina, also south of Lake Ladoga. Max Hofer, Funker in an infantry regiment, died April 18th, or was wounded April 18th at Demidov, and died April 23rd, 1942 in the Vitebsk Field Hospital. He's got a 7 on his, 7 or is that 2? Might be a 2 on his shoulder board there. Next up we have Steinberger, who was an Obergefreiter in the Geberg's Artillery Regiment, veteran of the campaigns of Poland and France, who died September 23rd, 1941 in the East at the age of 28. Nice Edelweiss on his sleeve there. Josef Schonbock, who was a Gefreiter in Infantry Regiment, bearer of the Iron Cross Second Class and the Infantry Assault Badge, who died on February 27th, 1942 in the fighting in Russia by Arel at the age of 24. Very interesting. We see him with a holster there for a pistol that does not look like the base of a Luger. I have no idea, unless that's part of the actual case and not the butt of a gun. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, very unusual. You don't normally see pistol holsters in these photos. This card's coming apart for Hans Schauf, who fell on July 5th, 1944 in the Rome-Vitebsk-Orshow-Minsk line. Then we have a nice little bit of a biography there, which will be good when I get around to researching that one. Karl Sockerl, who was a Gefreiter in a Gebirgsjäger regiment, died November 4th, 1942 in the fighting at the East at the age of 20 and 8 months. Johann Wagner, who was a Gefreiter in a Gebirgsjäger regiment, who on July 5th, 1941, in the fighting by Liga, west of Murmansk in Russia, died for Fuhrer, people, and fatherland at the age of 22. Markus Schleich, who was a machine gun shooter in an infantry regiment, bearer, died September 27th, 1942, in the fighting in the East at the age of 19. And Leopold Hostler, who was a Gefreiter in a field bakery company, died January 23rd, 1942, in Lyuben by Leningrad. So a field bakery guy there. You don't see a lot of field bakery cards as well, and I'm pretty sure all the ones I've gotten have come from this one seller. All right, we're down to the last couple cards here. These ones are pretty interesting. This is a set of List Regiment cards that all came from the same guy, and I have to say, they're very well put together. As you can see, they have this really cool, like, sheets, and they're not, like, glued on here. They actually have, like, card holders on the corner. But we have Obergefreiter Ottmar Eder here, who was a member of the 4th Company of the List Regiment, died January 28th, 1944. And then the only other non-List Regiment card in this grouping is for Obergefreiter Albert Huber, who was a member of Luftwaffe Jaeger Battalion ZBV-2, which I believe was a penal unit, and he died February 29th, 1944 at Domicino. Yeah, these are really nice. This is not how I present and preserve my death cards, but like if you have the time and the technical skills to put that together, that is a very sharp-looking set. We have a few more here. So we have Andreas Rogelmeyer, who died July 11th, 1941 at Ostropol. And he was a member of the 7th Company of the List Regiment. And what's also neat is on the back of these, you can actually see the casualty records he's put on there. So, super, super cool. And some of these are a bit loose. And then we have Otto Mitterreger, who died January 10th, 1944, 7 kilometers north of Balakleya. And he was a member of the 6th Company of the List Regiment. Then we have Gefreiter August Assanger, who died August 8th, 1942 at Voronezh, a member of the 10th Company of the List Regiment. Obergefreiter Valentin Petermeyer, who was killed February 2nd, 1943 at the Rolbon and Staria Oskol, who was a member of the 10th Company of the regiment. Karl Schrödinger, who was a Schütze, and he was killed September 20th, 1942 at Voronezh, and was a member of the 11th Company. Josef Kramer, who was a Unteroffizier and died July 5th, 1940 in a field hospital at Saint-Requier. He's a member of the 2nd Company. Johann Hutter, who was a Gefreiter in the 9th Company and died November 18th, 1942 at Voronezh. So a lot of heavy casualties at Voronezh, it looks like. And then we have Franz Reiter, who was a Gefreiter in the 2nd Company, and he died August 13th, 1942 at Podpologna. And Florian Salzetter, who was a soldier in the 4th Company, the Machine Gun Company, and he died August 28th, 1942 at Kursk. So, really nice set of, 6 or 7 List Regiment cards here, maybe 8. Very happy I was able to pick all these up, and definitely looking forward to getting videos on them eventually. But yeah, this has been a mess of death cards. More than I probably would get to in a year if I started on these right now. So yeah, like I said, this is probably the last big unboxing I'm going to do for quite some time. For obvious reasons, as I highlighted earlier, cutting back a little bit on my buying. It was getting kind of ridiculous there for a little bit. And on the bright side, that gives me more money if, interesting other stuff comes up that's not death cards, because then my whole military budget isn't going to death cards every month. But yeah, so hopefully we get to see some more stuff that isn't death card related, but that'll still be the main chunk of the videos. So yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Hope you had a good Christmas, happy holidays, everything. And yeah, hopefully collecting in 2025 is even better than it was in 2024. So thank you all for watching. Happy collecting, and I will see you all again very soon.